Hello, 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 TM24 here, and we are back with some more Marvel Snap content. Now, if you're just now finding the channel, welcome. I hope you find this video entertaining, maybe informative if you're newer to Marvel Snap. If not, I know y'all have seen this deck before, but I had to make a video on it. Now, if you're a returning viewer, I really do appreciate your support. My llama here, he appreciates your support as well. But today we are talking about Cerebro 2 and just kind of Cerebro in general. Now, I got to start this video with kind of an admission of guilt here. I was wrong, right? On this channel, I've always maintained that I don't particularly care for Cerebro decks, Patriot style decks. I just felt that they weren't that strong and not that fun to even play. But I decided to give this one a shot, and boy was I wrong. This deck is actually super strong and a lot more fun to play than I originally thought. So as you can see here, it's a Cerebro 2 list. We've got Iceman and Nightcrawler as our 1-drops. Obviously a little bit of disruption with Iceman. Nightcrawler being able to move definitely helps a little bit because sometimes you're moving, 6, 7 power depending on what you've got out there. So that just becomes a vision, which is kind of insane, but really nice 1-drops. Now we've got 4 2-drops. Goose is great, definitely helping you kind of shut down your opponent in one lane because they can't play all that much power. And like I said, you could have anywhere from 5, 4 to 7 power on all your 2-drops, and you could completely fill that lane. So that's going to be really tough for anyone to come back from. Our other 2-drops, we've got Luke Cage, who is great right now because of all of the high evolutionaries running around. They're going to keep our cards nice and healthy. Mr. Sinister is putting 2 power cards, so really solid again. Scorpion, again, a little bit more disruption. As you can see, all these cards are 2 power, except for Blue Marvel, getting them to 3 so that everything is buffed. Next up are the 3-drops, and we've got a lot of them. We've got 5 of them. Now, Cerebro and Mystique are great. Cerebro obviously is who this deck is built around. It's why we have all these 2-drops. Mystique is awesome for copying Cerebro, copying Blue Marvel. There's even kind of some more niche copies of Mr. Fantastic, Goose, to kind of lock your opponent out. So Mystique actually has more than just copying Cerebro, and I've actually had some use out of her doing that. Our other 2-drops, we've got Brood, who obviously we're putting down 3 2-power cards that are all being buffed. Super efficient card in this deck. We talked about Mr. Fantastic a little bit, but him coming down in that middle lane is huge because we're tossing even more power there than just the 2 power that he puts out. Storm is great in this deck because we can follow up with a Brood, we can follow up with a Mr. Sinister, and we can even get there thanks to Nightcrawler. So Storm is actually huge in this deck, and I love her in this deck. And then our other card is Blue Marvel, who is a 5-drop, obviously, but he is buffing everything. And yeah, I just keep going back to it. I have to admit, I was definitely wrong. I didn't think that Cerebro was all that strong. I felt that the playline was too predictable and that there just wasn't all that much payoff. But after playing it a bit and playing these decks, I see how strong it really is. As you can see here, it's standing up to things like Sandman and Darkhawk, and I'll walk you through the next couple games, but I don't know if I was just ignorant to the fact of how much power and fun that this deck actually was, but it is. It's a lot of fun. It's really strong, and you can get wins against some of the best decks out there. So we'll walk through these next couple games. I mean, honestly, there isn't too much I would change about this list. It's pretty much perfect as it is, but we're looking at it here, right? And our 1-drop, we can easily go Nightcrawler here, and Nightcrawler's able to move around. Now, we don't have any 2-drops yet, which is a little bit tough, but we've got a great chance at drawing one because we've got 4 of them. Now, here's where I find Cerebro a little bit frustrating. and specifically these style decks, is locations like Ant Maze. because that's going to buff our card out of reach of, the rest of our deck. This is where Storm comes in huge because it allows us to get rid of a location like that. But oftentimes you can get cards or locations that are really tough to deal with as a Cerebro deck. Having Nightcrawler being able to get to a lane that you otherwise wouldn't be able to is great. Additionally, Mr. Fantastic can reach it thanks to his ongoing, so that's awesome as well. But locations can be a bit troublesome when you're playing a Cerebro deck. Otherwise, it seems just super strong. It's really fun. You can see here that they've got, I thought it was some sort of a Cerebro, maybe a, just a good cards deck. They've got some 5 powers out there, but then Storm and Mr. Sinister. Definitely an interesting deck that we're playing up against, and I'm trying to figure out how do I win this game. And we decide that, we need to get some power down there potentially. Mr. Sinister and Goose coming through. So they do play Cerebro, but obviously now it's a Cerebro 5, which is huge, but they are missing out on a lot of power from those 2 power cards. The Sinister Clone, Mr. Sinister, Storm, things like that. We don't even hit our Cerebro in this instance, but we still have got a shot here. We can get Iceman down. We could get Blue Marvel down. We've got Mr. Fantastic in hand. We could Enchantress and get rid of some of that power. Doesn't help us all that much, so we ultimately decide to go with Blue Marvel and Iceman. And what that is going to do is buff us up enough to where we tie in Clintar, we win the Daily Bugle, and we win on power differential, which is huge. Mirror Island, that's another location that is troublesome for this deck. But the nice thing about it is we don't care, right? We could get a Nightcrawler and then a Mr. Sinister down and just let those cards start growing. So we're not even going to use Cerebro. We don't need to. We've got other ways to win. And that's what's kind of cool about this deck, and that I found is that even if you don't hit Cerebro, you could hit Blue Marvel, and that might just be enough because this deck really excels at going really wide, getting a lot of power out quickly. You can see we've got Brood ready to go. We've got Mr. Sinister ready to go, and we do. We get Brood down. We completely fill that lane, if not for Juggernaut, but still, we're up in that lane now. Our Nightcrawler is growing. We've got more cards there than they do, and we can still afford to play a Storm and an Iceman here. This deck is super cheap. Your most expensive card is going to be Blue Marvel, so you can really just it's almost like out-tempoing your opponent. You can get more down than they can deal with. So another huge benefit of this deck that honestly I didn't see before. It took them a Scarlet Witch and a Spider-Man just to tie us into Mirror Island and get something into the hub, and we're already way ahead in flooding, and we can still get power out there. We're going to toss Okoye down. We're going to toss Goose down. We decided to go with Okoye just because we know that we're going to be drawing another card, and potentially that +1 could make the difference where we're already fairly far ahead in flooding that we weren't too worried about leaving that slot open. Now, granted, they end up throwing us over there anyway. Not a big deal, but we're in a good spot here. We can toss an Iceman and Iceman's already down. We can toss Luke Cage and Mr. Sinister into the hub and just kind of let it roll and see where that gets us. And this deck is just, it goes super wide. They can get buffed up by Cerebro and Blue Marvel. Mystique is more flexible than you would originally think, and it's just a good deck. So I was definitely wrong. I really do enjoy playing this deck, and now it's kind of sparked this thing in me where now I want to try all these other Cerebro style decks. So a Cerebro 3 deck. I saw people playing Cerebro 5, 4, 6. So I might end up doing a bunch of Cerebro videos. We'll sprinkle them in there one at a time so that we're not overwhelmed with just Cerebro content. But I definitely think I didn't give this deck a proper go. And I think, it deserves that. I think it has enough power that you really, if you are looking for a deck to play that is consistent, that is strong and can win against pretty much anything, this is not a bad one to pick. It's not super expensive. The most expensive cards, are, they're Series 3 cards. So really, this deck is super affordable and obviously can get the job done. So definitely a deck worth giving a shot. And if you've got these cards and you want one to play that's consistent, this is not a bad one to pick. It does well in Conquest as well because it is so consistent, and it's just a good deck. I don't know if I can say that any other way, but it's really strong. Luke Cage is going to help protect you from decks like the High Evolutionary. Cerebro can buff you up enough. Goose is going to make it tough for your opponent to play cards in certain locations. Storm can lock people out. It's just got a lot going for it that you potentially don't see on first go. You can see here, I even lose my Cerebro, and all we pick up is a Mystique. So a little bit worrying, but, we can still make a play and get the job done here. So we play Mystique. We're just waiting for them to drop something down as well. It's going to be tough for them to go into Sewer System because it's got to be 3 or less. We've already won Flooded. Clintar is their best shot, so they've already have that, but they're of course afraid of us flipping it with, maybe a Blue Marvel or something like that. So this deck just, it's a lot better than it looks on the surface. And I think I made a mistake holding off so long on not playing Cerebro and not properly giving them, a run through. But this one has definitely changed my mind, and I don't think I can emphasize that enough. I think this is a very, very good deck right now, and if you can, hey, give this one a shot. As you can see here, we didn't even hit anything. We had no target to hit, and they just pull a Storm over. That's not even a winning play, and we just get the job done. So, kind of crazy. We put absolutely nothing down on turn 6 and still won the game. All right, so just a final word on this list. I mean, I feel like it's a pretty good list. I don't know if there's a lot that you could change. Maybe minor things like putting Korg out instead of Iceman. If you want a guaranteed play on turn 1, Quicksilver, Yondu again, maybe. Daredevil might not be a bad idea just to see what your opponent's got planned. But I like the power that comes from Goose, and obviously the protection that comes from Luke Cage. Maybe you get rid of Scorpion, but he also provides a ton of value as well. Other than that, I don't know if there's a whole lot in this deck that you want to change. You're probably not putting Rogue in. I'm just looking through to see if there's anything else worth playing, and there just doesn't seem to be. Nothing else makes sense. I think this deck is pretty well optimized, and this might be the best Cerebro 2 list that you can make right now. So if you've got the cards, give this one a shot. I was wrong to not play this, but hey, this deck is good. So give it a shot. If you've hung around till now and have watched, the entirety of this video, I'm sorry if I'm rambling so much, but there's not enough good things to say about this deck, and I think that it's super consistent. It's a deck that is worth learning because it seems like it's going to be around for a while and is only going to get better as new cards are introduced. So definitely a solid one. Thank you for watching the video. If you haven't subscribed or liked the video, now would be a good time to do so. But until next time, have some fun.